When my sister Claire handed me the catering apron at her promotion celebration and ordered me to start serving drinks to her colleagues, she had no idea that the distinguished gentleman in the corner, her new boss, was actually my business partner. What she also didn't know was that I had discovered her scheme to claim credit for my revolutionary marketing algorithm 3 weeks earlier, and tonight's humiliation was about to become her professional undoing. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow, I've saved something extra special for you. The first sign that something was fundamentally wrong came on a rainy Tuesday evening in September when I arrived at my downtown Seattle office later than usual. TechFlow Innovations, the digital marketing company I had co-founded 5 years earlier, occupied the entire 42nd floor of the Columbia Center, its floor-to-ceiling windows offering a breathtaking view of Elliott Bay and the Olympic Mountains. Beyond, the space had been designed to reflect our company's culture of innovation and transparency, with open workstations, collaborative pods, and glass-walled meeting rooms that encouraged both creativity and accountability. I am Rebecca Martinez, though most people in the tech industry know me simply as Becca. At 34, I had built a reputation as one of the most innovative minds in predictive marketing analytics, having developed several proprietary algorithms that could forecast consumer behavior patterns with unprecedented accuracy. My company, which I had started with my business partner David Chen, had grown from a 2-person operation in my Capitol Hill apartment to a mid-sized firm employing over 60 specialists and serving Fortune 500 clients across multiple industries. The journey to this level of success had not been straightforward. After earning my master's degree in data science from the University of Washington, I had spent 3 grueling years at a large consulting firm, watching my innovative ideas get diluted by committee decisions and corporate bureaucracy. The breaking point came when my revolutionary approach to social media sentiment analysis was shelved indefinitely because it challenged existing methodologies that generated significant revenue streams for the firm's established partners. David and I had met during a machine learning conference in Portland, where we discovered a shared frustration with the industry's resistance to genuine innovation. He brought 15 years of business development experience and an extensive network of potential clients, while I contributed the technical expertise and creative vision that would differentiate our offerings in an increasingly crowded marketplace. Our partnership had been built on mutual respect, clearly defined roles, and a shared commitment to pushing the boundaries of what data science could accomplish in the marketing sphere. The office was unusually quiet that evening, most of our team having departed hours earlier. I had returned to retrieve some research materials for a client presentation scheduled for the following morning, intending only a brief stop before heading home to my Queen Anne condo. The security system showed that I was the sole occupant of the floor, yet as I approached my corner office, I noticed light emanating from beneath the door to our secure server room. This discovery immediately triggered my concern, as access to the server room required both a key card and a biometric scan, with entry logs automatically recorded in our security system. Only 5 people in the company possessed the necessary clearance, and I was certain that David had left for his daughter's soccer game several hours earlier. The other authorized personnel were either out of town or accounted for through various client meetings and personal commitments. I approached the server room cautiously, my mind racing through potential explanations for the unauthorized access. The possibility of a security breach sent a chill through me, as our servers contain not only sensitive client data but also proprietary algorithms that represented years of development work and millions of dollars in intellectual property value. The competitive advantage these systems provided had been instrumental in securing contracts with major retailers, tech companies, and financial institutions. The biometric scanner beside the door showed recent activity, with the last entry logged at 6:47 p.m. under my sister Claire's credentials. This revelation stopped me cold, as Claire worked in our business development department and had never possessed server room access. Her role involved client relationship management and new business acquisition, responsibilities that required no interaction with our technical infrastructure or proprietary code bases. Claire had joined TechFlow approximately 18 months earlier, following her termination from a competing analytics firm under circumstances she had described as personality conflicts with management. I had advocated for her hiring despite David's reservations about nepotism, arguing that her demonstrated skills in client acquisition and her understanding of industry dynamics would benefit our expansion efforts. She had proven effective in her assigned role, successfully managing several key accounts and contributing to a 20% increase in our annual revenue. However, her presence in the server room at this hour, with credentials she should not possess, suggested a level of deception that fundamentally challenged my understanding of both her character and her activities within our company. The implications. extended beyond simple policy violation to potential corporate espionage, theft of proprietary information, or sabotage of critical systems. I retreated to my office and immediately accessed our comprehensive security monitoring system, pulling up detailed logs of all server room activity over the past 6 months. The data revealed a disturbing pattern of unauthorized entries, always occurring during evening hours when the office was largely empty, consistently using Claire's credentials despite her lack of official access authorization. The frequency had increased dramatically over the past 3 weeks, with visits occurring almost nightly. Further investigation revealed that someone had been systematically copying files from our development servers, focusing specifically on the algorithms I had developed for our newest product line. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel, it means a lot to us. Now back to the story. This software represented the culmination of 2 years of intensive research and development, incorporating machine learning models that could predict consumer purchasing decisions with accuracy rates exceeding 90%. We had planned to launch this revolutionary system in the coming quarter, with projected revenues that would triple our company's valuation within 18 months. The sophistication of the data extraction suggested technical knowledge far beyond Claire's demonstrated capabilities. She possessed strong business acumen and excellent interpersonal skills, but her background included no formal training in computer science, data analysis, or systems administration. Someone was either coaching her through this process or using her credentials to mask their own involvement in the systematic theft of our intellectual property. I spent the next several hours documenting every aspect of the security breach, creating a comprehensive record of unauthorized access attempts, file transfers, and system modifications. The evidence painted a picture of calculated industrial espionage conducted over an extended period with careful attention to avoiding detection. Whoever was responsible had demonstrated intimate knowledge of our security protocols, backup schedules, and staff routines. The emotional impact of discovering my sister's apparent involvement in this betrayal was profound and disorienting. Claire and I had maintained a complex but generally supportive relationship throughout our adult lives, despite the natural competition that existed between siblings in related professional fields. I had genuinely believed that providing her with employment opportunities at TechFlow would strengthen both our personal bond and her career prospects following her difficulties at the previous company. Our family history included patterns of rivalry and comparison that had shaped both our personalities and our professional ambitions. Claire, 3 years younger than me, had always been the more socially adept sister, possessing natural charisma and persuasive abilities that had served her well in sales and business development roles. I had been the academically focused one, earning recognition through technical achievements and innovative thinking rather than interpersonal influence. These different strengths had generally complemented rather than conflicted with each other throughout our careers, leading me to believe that working together would leverage our respective talents effectively. The discovery of her betrayal forced me to reconsider every interaction we had shared over the past 18 months, searching for signs of deception I might have missed or conversations that took on new meaning in light of current revelations. As dawn broke over Seattle's skyline, I had assembled a comprehensive dossier documenting the scope and timeline of the security breach. The evidence was overwhelming and legally sufficient to pursue both civil and criminal remedies against those responsible. However, the personal dimension of the betrayal complicated any straightforward response, as public revelation would inevitably destroy Claire's career and create lasting damage to our family relationships. I decided to conduct additional investigation. Before confronting anyone directly, hoping to understand the full extent of the conspiracy and identify all parties involved. The theft of proprietary algorithms represented a direct threat to TechFlow's competitive position and financial stability, but rushing to judgment without complete information could result in incomplete justice or unintended consequences for innocent parties. My first step involved secretly installing additional monitoring software on our systems, creating a comprehensive surveillance network that would track all future unauthorized access attempts and document exactly what information was being stolen. This enhanced security would also help identify whether Claire was acting independently or as part of a larger conspiracy involving competitors, foreign entities, or other hostile actors. The following day proceeded normally from external appearances, with routine client meetings, team collaborations, and strategic planning sessions occupying my scheduled time. However, beneath this facade of normal business operations, I was carefully observing Claire's behavior, looking for signs of nervous tension, unusual communication patterns, or changes in her typical work routine that might provide additional insights into her motivations and methods. Claire appeared completely relaxed and confident throughout the day, participating enthusiastically in team meetings and demonstrating no apparent concern about potential discovery of her unauthorized activities. Her demeanor suggested either exceptional acting ability or genuine belief that her actions remained undetected. She even made several references to exciting developments in her project pipeline and expressed enthusiasm about upcoming opportunities for professional advancement. During a casual conversation in the break room, Claire mentioned that she had been working late several evenings recently, preparing materials for a major presentation to potential new clients. This explanation provided convenient cover for her extended presence in the office during evening hours, though it failed to account for her access to secure areas that had no relevance to her assigned responsibilities. I also noticed that Claire had begun carrying a different laptop computer, claiming that her previous device had developed technical problems requiring replacement. This detail raised additional suspicions, as the new laptop could potentially serve as a repository for stolen data or a means of transmitting proprietary information to external parties without detection through our normal network monitoring systems. The enhanced surveillance system I had installed began generating results within 48 hours, capturing detailed records of continued unauthorized access to our development servers. The intruder was systematically copying advanced algorithm designs, client databases, financial projections, and strategic planning documents. The scope of the theft extended far beyond my initial estimates, encompassing virtually every aspect of our proprietary technology and business intelligence. Most concerning was evidence that someone was specifically targeting our upcoming product launch plans, stealing detailed marketing strategies, pricing models, and customer acquisition frameworks that had required months of careful development and testing. This information would provide competitors with devastating insights into our strategic direction and potentially enable them to preempt our market entry with similar offerings launched under accelerated timelines. The timing of these thefts coincided suspiciously with Claire's recent mention of a significant career opportunity that had emerged through her professional network. She had described this prospect in vague terms, suggesting it involved a senior role with a competing analytics firm that specialized in exactly the type of predictive marketing solutions we were preparing to launch. The correlation between her career discussions and the systematic theft of our related intellectual property seemed far too convenient to represent mere coincidence. Additional investigation revealed that Claire had been conducting encrypted communications with individuals outside our organization, using personal devices and cellular networks to avoid detection through our corporate monitoring systems. While I could not access the content of these communications due to encryption protocols, the frequency and timing patterns suggested ongoing coordination with external parties regarding the stolen information. I also discovered that Claire had been photographing proprietary documents using her personal smartphone during seemingly routine office interactions. High-resolution images of algorithm specifications, client contracts, and strategic planning materials had been captured during meetings where such documents were displayed on conference room screens or shared in printed format. This photographic evidence demonstrated premeditated espionage rather than opportunistic information gathering. The psychological challenge of maintaining normal interactions with Claire while possessing knowledge of her betrayal created significant stress and emotional strain. Every conversation required careful attention to avoid revealing my awareness of her activities while simultaneously gathering additional intelligence about her methods and motivations. The deception felt particularly acute during family-related discussions, where her apparent genuine affection and concern for my well-being seemed to contradict her systematic theft of my professional achievements. 1 week after my initial discovery, the enhanced monitoring system captured definitive proof that Claire was transmitting stolen data to competitors through sophisticated file-sharing networks designed to obscure the source and destination of sensitive information transfers. The recipients included several firms that had been aggressively recruiting talent from our industry sector and attempting to replicate our innovative approaches to predictive analytics. Among these competing organizations was Meridian Analytics, a well-funded startup that had recently secured significant venture capital investment and was positioning itself as a disruptive force in the marketing technology space. Their leadership team included several former executives from major consulting firms who possessed extensive industry connections and strategic resources necessary to monetize stolen intellectual property effectively. The revelation that Meridian Analytics was among the recipients of our proprietary information provided crucial context for understanding the broader implications of Claire's betrayal. This company had been founded by Marcus Webb, a former colleague from my previous consulting firm who had harbored professional resentment following my departure and subsequent success with TechFlow. His involvement suggested that the theft represented More than simple corporate espionage, potentially constituting a personal vendetta disguised as competitive intelligence gathering. Marcus had attempted to recruit me for his new venture several times over the past 2 years, offering increasingly generous compensation packages and equity positions that I had consistently declined. His persistence had evolved from professional courtesy to barely concealed frustration as TechFlow's market position strengthened and our innovative algorithms attracted industry recognition that he coveted for his own organization. The connection between Claire's theft activities and Marcus's competitive ambitions created a complex web of personal and professional motivations that transcended simple financial considerations. This was not merely about stealing proprietary technology for commercial advantage, but about undermining my professional achievements and transferring credit for my innovations to individuals who had contributed nothing to their development. As I assembled this comprehensive understanding of the conspiracy against TechFlow and my personal interests, I began developing a strategic response that would address both the immediate security threats and the longer-term implications for our company's competitive position. The approach needed to neutralize the ongoing theft, recover stolen intellectual property, and impose appropriate consequences on those responsible while minimizing collateral damage to innocent parties and business relationships. The first phase of my response involved secretly modifying our proprietary algorithms to include subtle tracking mechanisms that would identify any unauthorized use or implementation by competing organizations. These modifications were designed to be virtually undetectable during casual examination but would provide irrefutable evidence of intellectual property theft if our technology appeared in competitors' products or services. I also began documenting every aspect of Claire's activities within our organization, creating a comprehensive record that would support legal action if necessary while preserving the possibility of internal resolution if she demonstrated genuine remorse and willingness to cooperate in neutralizing the damage she had caused. This documentation included security footage, access logs, communication records, and forensic analysis of all compromised systems and data repositories. The emotional toll of maintaining this investigation while preserving normal family relationships created significant personal stress that I struggled to manage effectively. Claire continued to participate in family gatherings and personal conversations with apparent sincerity, expressing interest in my professional projects and offering supportive commentary that felt increasingly hollow given my knowledge of her systematic betrayal. During one particularly difficult family dinner, Claire enthusiastically described her excitement about potential career advancement opportunities, mentioning that her current project portfolio had attracted attention from industry leaders who recognized her innovative contributions to marketing analytics. The irony of her claiming credit for work that she had stolen from me was almost overwhelming, requiring enormous self-control to avoid confronting her immediately about the deception. 3 weeks after my initial discovery of the security breach, Claire announced that she had accepted a senior position with Meridian Analytics, effective immediately following a transition period that would allow her to complete her current responsibilities at TechFlow. The news was presented as a natural career progression that would utilize her demonstrated expertise in predictive marketing while providing opportunities for increased leadership responsibility and professional growth. Her resignation letter, submitted to David and copied to me, emphasized her gratitude for the opportunities TechFlow had provided and her commitment to ensuring smooth transition of her client relationships and ongoing projects. Marcus Webb introduced her to several important guests as the brilliant mind behind their upcoming revolutionary advances in predictive marketing analytics, attributing specific technical achievements to her insight and creativity that I knew had originated from months of my own research and development work. The irony of watching Claire accept credit for innovations she had stolen created a surreal quality to the social interactions surrounding me. Guests praised her technical vision and strategic thinking based on accomplishments that existed only through her systematic theft of my intellectual property. The elaborate deception had created a false professional identity that was being celebrated and validated by individuals who had no knowledge of its fraudulent foundation. Approximately 1 hour into the reception, Claire approached me with a warm smile and sisterly affection that felt particularly jarring given my knowledge of her betrayal. Her greeting was enthusiastic and apparently genuine, expressing gratitude for my attendance and excitement about sharing this milestone moment with family members who had supported her career development. The performance was flawless, containing no hint of guilt or concern about potential discovery of her illegal activities. "Becca, I'm so glad you could make it tonight," she said, embracing me with what appeared to be sincere emotion. "This opportunity with Meridian Analytics represents everything I've been working toward, and having you here to celebrate makes it even more special. I know we've had our competitive moments over the years, but I hope you understand that this success doesn't diminish what you've accomplished with TechFlow." The calculated nature of her comments was immediately apparent, positioning her advancement as independent achievement while subtly acknowledging sibling rivalry in a manner designed to deflect potential criticism or suspicion. Her reference to competitive moments suggested awareness that her rapid promotion might appear questionable to those familiar with our respective professional backgrounds and technical capabilities. "Congratulations on your promotion," I replied, maintaining carefully neutral tone while studying her expression for any signs of nervous tension or guilty conscience. "I understand Meridian Analytics has some exciting product developments planned for the coming quarter. You must be thrilled to be part of such innovative work." Claire's eyes brightened with apparent enthusiasm as she launched into a detailed description of the revolutionary algorithms and predictive modeling systems that would distinguish Meridian Analytics from competitors in the increasingly crowded marketing technology sector. Her technical explanations were surprisingly sophisticated, incorporating terminology and concepts that suggested either intensive recent education or access to proprietary information that extended far beyond her legitimate professional experience. The breakthrough came from recognizing patterns in consumer behavior data that previous analytics approaches had completely overlooked, she explained with obvious pride. "By developing machine learning models that could identify these subtle correlations, we've achieved prediction accuracy rates that exceed anything currently available in the marketplace." It's exactly the kind of innovative thinking that drew me to Meridian Analytics in the first place. Every word of her explanation contained technical details that I recognized from my own research and development work, presented with the confidence of someone who genuinely believed she had contributed to their creation. The psychological complexity of her self-deception was fascinating and disturbing, suggesting that she had somehow convinced herself that theft and plagiarism constituted legitimate professional achievement worthy of celebration and recognition. As Claire continued describing her supposed innovations, I noticed Marcus Webb approaching our conversation with obvious interest in connecting his new star employee with her accomplished sister. His expression contained the calculating satisfaction of someone who believed he had successfully orchestrated a major competitive victory through superior talent acquisition and strategic planning. "Rebecca Martinez," he said, extending his hand with practiced corporate charm. "Marcus Webb from Meridian Analytics. I've heard so much about your work with TechFlow from Claire. She speaks very highly of your technical abilities, though I have to admit we're pretty excited about having recruited the more innovative sister for our team." The casual arrogance of his comment was breathtaking, delivered with the confident assumption that Claire's stolen achievements represented legitimate superiority over my documented track record of technical innovation. His characterization of her as the more innovative sister was based entirely on intellectual property that she had systematically stolen from my company, yet he presented this assessment as informed professional judgment rather than fraudulent misrepresentation. "I'm sure you're very pleased with your recent acquisition," I replied, allowing slight emphasis to suggest multiple layers of meaning. "Claire certainly brings unique advantages to any organization that values her particular approach to competitive intelligence and proprietary information management." Marcus appeared to interpret my comments as gracious acknowledgement of sibling rivalry rather than pointed reference to industrial espionage, his expression remaining confident as he outlined Meridian Analytics' strategic vision and growth projections. His detailed description of their upcoming product launch included specific technical features and competitive advantages that had been directly copied from TechFlow's development roadmap, presented with no apparent awareness of their stolen origins. "Our breakthrough algorithm represents a fundamental advance in predictive analytics," he explained enthusiastically. "By incorporating advanced machine learning techniques with innovative data correlation methods, we've achieved accuracy rates that will revolutionize how companies approach consumer behavior prediction." Public exposure would create immediate awareness of the theft among industry observers and potential clients, making it much more difficult for Marcus Webb and his company to benefit from their illicit acquisition of our proprietary algorithms. Additionally, the party guest list included several venture capital investors, technology journalists, and industry analysts whose presence would ensure that news of the theft reached relevant professional networks quickly and comprehensively. Rather than allowing Meridian Analytics to control the narrative around their supposed innovations, public revelation would force them into defensive positions while establishing TechFlow as the legitimate source of the disputed technology. As I prepared to leave for the Harbor Club, I reviewed the materials I would be presenting during the evening's confrontation. A leather portfolio contained printed copies of security logs, forensic analysis reports, and communications records that documented Claire's systematic theft activities. Digital copies of the same evidence were stored on multiple devices and cloud platforms, ensuring that technical difficulties or attempts at suppression could not prevent the information from reaching its intended audience. The portfolio also contained a detailed timeline that connected Claire's unauthorized access activities with specific developments in Meridian Analytics product development, demonstrating the direct correlation between her theft and their supposed innovations. This chronological evidence was supported by technical analysis showing that their algorithms contained distinctive elements that could only have originated from our proprietary code bases, creating irrefutable proof of intellectual property theft. Perhaps most damaging was evidence of financial transactions between Meridian Analytics and offshore accounts linked to Claire's personal financial network. These payments, disguised as consulting fees and performance bonuses, established clear quid pro quo arrangements that transformed her activities from simple corporate espionage to deliberate commercial fraud. The amounts involved were substantial enough to constitute felony-level offenses under both state and federal law. The drive to Harbor Club provided an opportunity to review my strategic objectives for the evening's confrontation. The primary goal was to expose Claire's theft in a manner that would prevent Meridian Analytics from benefiting from stolen technology while protecting TechFlow's competitive position in the marketplace. Secondary objectives included gathering additional evidence through recorded conversations and witness statements that would support future legal proceedings. However, the personal dimension of the confrontation remained emotionally challenging despite months of preparation and evidence gathering. Claire was still my sister, and the family relationships that would be damaged by public revelation of her betrayal created genuine psychological conflict that competed with my professional obligations and sense of justice. The decision to proceed had required careful consideration of these competing loyalties and ultimate acceptance that protecting innocent parties and upholding ethical standards took precedence over preserving family harmony. Harbor Club's valet service was already busy when I arrived, with luxury vehicles lined up along the circular drive as guests made their way into the elegant venue. The building's classical architecture and understated opulence reflected the professional status of attendees, most of whom represented senior leadership positions in Seattle's thriving technology sector. I recognized several faces from industry conferences and networking events, their presence confirming that Claire had successfully positioned this gathering as a significant professional milestone rather than merely a personal celebration. The main reception area buzzed with animated conversation as colleagues and friends congratulated Claire on her career advancement while sample hors d'oeuvres and premium cocktails from strategically positioned service stations. The atmosphere was festive and optimistic, with guests clearly viewing this as an opportunity to connect with successful professionals and potentially identify new business opportunities through expanded networking relationships. Claire appeared radiant as she moved through the crowd, accepting congratulations and introducing guests to one another with the practiced ease of someone comfortable in professional social settings. Her elegant black cocktail dress and confident demeanor projected success and achievement, creating a stark contrast to the reality of systematic deception that had enabled her rapid career advancement. Watching her perform this role with apparent genuine pleasure added another layer of psychological complexity to the evening's planned revelations. David had arrived earlier and positioned himself strategically near the bar area where he could observe the crowd while maintaining casual conversation with various acquaintances. His presence provided reassurance that I would have reliable support during whatever confrontation developed, while his extensive industry relationships ensured that any dramatic revelations would be properly witnessed and documented by credible sources. Among the gathered guests, I immediately identified several key figures whose reactions would determine the broader impact of the evening's events. Marcus Webb stood near the panoramic windows engaged in animated discussion with two venture capital partners who had reportedly invested significant sums in Meridian Analytics based partly on their anticipated product innovations. His confident demeanor and expansive gestures suggested someone celebrating a major strategic victory, apparently unaware that his competitive advantage was about to be thoroughly undermined. Jennifer Walsh, technology editor for Seattle Business Journal, circulated among the guests with the casual professionalism of someone attending both socially and professionally. Her presence meant that any significant developments during the evening would likely receive media coverage that could amplify the impact far beyond the immediate attendees. This potential for broader exposure added both opportunity and risk to my planned confrontation strategy. Several former colleagues from my previous consulting firm mingled among the crowd, their presence suggesting that Claire had leveraged professional relationships developed during my tenure to expand her own network and credibility. This revelation added another dimension to her systematic exploitation of my achievements, demonstrating that the theft extended beyond simple intellectual property to include relationship capital and professional connections that she had accessed through family association. As the evening progressed through its initial social phase, I observed Claire's interactions with her new colleagues from Meridian Analytics, noting the deference they showed toward her supposed expertise and innovative contributions. The document contained no indication of guilt, remorse, or acknowledgement of any improper activities during her tenure with our company. Instead, it read like a conventional professional resignation from someone moving to a better opportunity. Through legitimate career development. The timing of Claire's departure, coinciding with my discovery of the intellectual property theft, seemed designed to remove her from potential internal investigation while positioning her to benefit from the stolen technology at her new organization. This calculated approach suggested sophisticated planning rather than impulsive decision-making, indicating that the conspiracy had been developing for months rather than emerging as a sudden opportunity. I realized that Claire's resignation would soon be followed by an announcement from Meridian Analytics regarding revolutionary new products that would closely mirror our proprietary algorithms and strategic approaches. This competitive threat needed to be addressed immediately, before they could establish market presence using our stolen intellectual property and potentially claim original development of our innovations. The situation required decisive action that would expose the theft, protect our competitive advantages, and ensure appropriate consequences for those who had violated both legal and ethical boundaries. However, the personal dimension of the betrayal complicated any straightforward response, as public revelation would inevitably damage family relationships and create lasting emotional consequences that extended beyond professional considerations. As I finalized my strategic response to this complex situation, I reflected on the broader implications of corporate espionage in the technology sector and the particular vulnerabilities that family-owned or family-influenced businesses faced. When personal relationships created opportunities for exploitation, the trust that had enabled Claire's access to our organization had been systematically violated, demonstrating the need for more rigorous security protocols regardless of personal connections or family considerations. The discovery also highlighted the importance of protecting intellectual property through multiple layers of security, legal protection, and strategic planning that anticipated potential threats from both external competitors and internal bad actors. The sophistication of modern data theft required equally sophisticated defensive measures that could detect, document, and respond to unauthorized access attempts before significant damage occurred. 3 days before Claire's scheduled departure from TechFlow, she approached me with an unexpected invitation that would prove to be the catalyst for my carefully planned response to her betrayal. She had organized a celebration party to mark her promotion to Senior Vice President of Marketing Analytics at Meridian Analytics, describing it as an opportunity to thank colleagues and friends who had supported her career development and to introduce her new professional network to people who mattered to her personally. The party was scheduled for the following Saturday evening at the exclusive Harbor Club overlooking Elliott Bay, with an estimated 60 guests including her new colleagues from Meridian Analytics, former associates from previous employers, family members, and selected individuals from TechFlow's staff. Claire had positioned this event as both a farewell celebration and a networking opportunity that would showcase her professional achievements and industry connections. What Claire did not know was that among the confirmed attendees was David Chen, my business partner and co-founder of TechFlow, who would be attending not as a casual guest but as someone fully briefed on her theft activities and prepared to support my planned confrontation. She also remained unaware that several of her new colleagues from Meridian Analytics, including Marcus Webb himself, had significant professional relationships with David that predated their current company affiliations. Most critically, Claire had no knowledge that the party would provide the perfect opportunity to expose her betrayal in front of the very people who stood to benefit from her stolen intellectual property, creating a public accountability moment that would prevent them from claiming ignorance about the source of their newly acquired competitive advantages. As I prepared for this confrontation, I reflected on the journey that had brought me to this point, from the shocking discovery of unauthorized access to our systems, through weeks of careful investigation and evidence gathering, to this moment of strategic revelation that would determine not only the immediate consequences for Claire's actions but also the long-term competitive position of the company I had worked so hard to build. The party invitation represented more than just a social gathering. It was an opportunity to reclaim control of a narrative that Claire and her conspirators had attempted to manipulate in their favor. By the evening's end, everyone in attendance would understand exactly how Meridian Analytics had acquired their revolutionary new algorithms and what that revelation meant for both companies' future prospects in the increasingly competitive marketing analytics industry. The stage was set for a confrontation that would expose not just individual betrayal but an entire conspiracy designed to steal years of innovative work and transfer credit to people who had contributed nothing to its development. The distinguished gathering Claire had assembled to celebrate her supposed achievements would instead become witnesses to the revelation of her systematic deception and the sophisticated theft that had enabled her rapid career advancement. Saturday evening could not arrive soon enough. Saturday evening arrived with the crisp clarity that only October in Seattle could provide. The Harbor Club's panoramic windows showcased the city's glittering skyline reflected in the dark waters of Elliott Bay, while the Olympic Mountains formed a majestic backdrop against the deepening twilight. I stood before my bedroom mirror, adjusting the sophisticated navy blazer I had chosen for this evening's events, its understated elegance concealing the storm of preparation that lay beneath this carefully crafted exterior. The past week had been a whirlwind of strategic coordination with David, legal consultations with our corporate attorney, and meticulous arrangement of every detail that would unfold during Claire's celebration. Our attorney, Patricia Voss, had assured me that the evidence we had compiled was more than sufficient to pursue both civil remedies and criminal charges against Claire and her conspirators. However, she had also emphasized that public confrontation carried risks that needed to be carefully managed to avoid potential defamation claims or accusations of harassment. David had initially expressed reservations about the theatrical nature of my planned response, arguing that private legal action might be more appropriate than public exposure. His concerns were practical and well-founded, focusing on potential damage to TechFlow's reputation and the possibility that dramatic confrontation might backfire by generating sympathy for Claire rather than condemnation of her actions. However, as we reviewed the full scope of the intellectual property theft and its potential impact on our company's future, he had gradually come to support the more aggressive approach. The decision to proceed with public confrontation had been influenced by several strategic considerations beyond simple desire for dramatic justice. Meridian Analytics was planning to announce their revolutionary new product line within days of Claire's official start date, clearly intending to capitalize on our stolen technology before we could establish prior art or seek legal remedies through traditional channels. Claire's insights were instrumental in developing this competitive advantage. The audacity of his presentation was remarkable, crediting Claire with innovations that represented years of my research while positioning Meridian Analytics as industry leaders based on stolen intellectual property. His confidence suggested either complete ignorance of the theft or calculated decision to proceed despite awareness of potential legal consequences. Either possibility demonstrated the kind of ethical blindness that had enabled this conspiracy to develop and flourish. As our conversation continued, I became aware that other guests were beginning to gather around our discussion, drawn by the apparent significance of the interaction between three prominent figures in Seattle's technology sector. Jennifer Walsh had positioned herself within listening range with the subtle professionalism of an experienced reporter, while several venture capital investors displayed obvious interest in the technical details being discussed. The growing audience created the perfect opportunity to execute the confrontation I had been planning, with credible witnesses positioned to observe and document whatever revelations emerged from the evening's events. The timing felt optimal, occurring after sufficient social interaction to establish the celebratory context while ensuring maximum attention for the dramatic reversal that was about to unfold. "It's fascinating how innovation can emerge from unexpected sources," I commented, reaching into my portfolio for the first piece of evidence I planned to present. "For instance, the specific algorithm you just described bears remarkable similarity to proprietary technology developed at TechFlow over the past 18 months. The correlation methods and machine learning approaches are virtually identical to systems we've been preparing for market introduction." Marcus's expression shifted slightly, suggesting increased attention rather than concern as he processed my observation. His response indicated either genuine surprise at the coincidence or carefully practiced deflection designed to minimize the significance of technological similarities between competing companies. "Well, brilliant minds often develop similar solutions to comparable problems," he replied smoothly. "The predictive analytics field is certainly competitive, and I'm sure multiple companies are exploring various approaches to improving accuracy rates. However, I can assure you that our algorithms represent completely original development work based on Claire's innovative insights and our internal research capabilities." The moment had arrived to introduce evidence that would transform casual conversation into formal accusation, shifting the evening's dynamics from celebration to confrontation while exposing the systematic deception that had enabled this gathering to occur. I withdrew a folder containing printed security logs and forensic analysis reports, their official appearance immediately commanding attention from the assembled observers. "I'm sure you believe that your development work was completely original," I said, opening the folder to reveal detailed documentation of unauthorized access to TechFlow systems. However, these security logs tell a rather different story about how Meridian Analytics acquired its revolutionary algorithms and competitive advantages. The change in atmosphere was immediate and palpable as guests recognized that casual networking Conversation had evolved into something far more serious and potentially dramatic. Marcus's confident expression faltered as he processed the implications of official documentation being introduced into what had been a social gathering, while Claire's face drained of color as she realized the nature of the evidence I was presenting. "What exactly are you suggesting?" Marcus demanded, his tone shifting from corporate charm to defensive aggression as the potential threat to his company's reputation became apparent. "I hope you're not making accusations about industrial espionage or intellectual property theft, because those are serious legal allegations that require substantial proof." "I'm not making accusations," I replied calmly, distributing copies of the security documentation to several guests including Jennifer Walsh and the venture capital investors. "I'm presenting evidence. These logs document systematic unauthorized access to TechFlow's development servers over a period of 6 months, using credentials that were improperly obtained and utilized to steal proprietary algorithms, client databases, and strategic planning documents." The documentation spoke for itself, providing irrefutable proof of specific dates, times, and file transfers that had occurred during Claire's systematic theft of intellectual property. The technical details were comprehensive enough to satisfy skeptical observers while remaining accessible to non-technical audience members who could understand the basic patterns of deception and exploitation being revealed. Claire's reaction was immediate and visceral, her carefully maintained composure cracking as the full scope of her exposure became apparent. The confident professional persona she had been projecting throughout the evening dissolved into panic as she realized that her elaborate deception was being systematically dismantled in front of the very people she had been hoping to impress and deceive. "This is completely inappropriate," she said, her voice rising with desperation as she struggled to regain control of a situation that was rapidly spiraling beyond her ability to manage. "You're disrupting my celebration with wild accusations and forged documents. I don't know what kind of sibling jealousy is motivating this attack, but it's unprofessional and potentially libelous." Her attempt to characterize the evidence as sibling rivalry and forged documentation demonstrated the depth of her desperation while revealing her fundamental misunderstanding of the legal and professional consequences she was facing. The accusation of forgery was particularly misguided, as the security logs could be independently verified through multiple technical means that would only strengthen the case against her. "The documentation is authentic and independently verifiable," I responded, maintaining calm professionalism despite the emotional intensity of confronting my sister's betrayal in such a public forum. "These security logs are automatically generated by our system monitoring software and correlated with biometric access records that cannot be falsified or manipulated. Every entry is timestamped and cross-referenced with multiple authentication systems." David appeared at my side, having observed the developing confrontation and positioned himself to provide support during what was clearly becoming a significant professional and personal crisis. His presence added credibility to my allegations, while demonstrating that TechFlow's leadership was unified in addressing this serious threat to our company's intellectual property and competitive position. "I can confirm the authenticity of these security records," David announced to the assembled guests, his authoritative tone commanding immediate attention from everyone within hearing range. "As co-founder of TechFlow, I've reviewed all documentation related to this security breach and can verify that it represents systematic industrial espionage conducted over an extended period with clear intent to steal proprietary technology and transfer it to competing organizations." The weight of David's confirmation shifted the evening's dynamics dramatically, transforming my individual accusations into official corporate allegations supported by documented evidence and credible witness testimony. The gathered guests began to realize that they were witnessing not merely personal drama but a significant business scandal with potential legal ramifications for everyone involved. Marcus Webb's demeanor had evolved from confident dismissal to genuine concern as he began to understand the potential consequences for his company and personal reputation. The realization that Meridian Analytics might have built their competitive strategy around stolen intellectual property created immediate legal and financial liabilities that could destroy the venture capital investments and strategic partnerships he had been celebrating just moments earlier. "Even if these allegations were true, which I'm not conceding," he said carefully, "Meridian Analytics conducted due diligence on all intellectual property acquisitions and has complete confidence in the legitimacy of our technology portfolio. Any suggestions of impropriety would need to be addressed through appropriate legal channels rather than public accusation at social gatherings." His attempt to establish plausible deniability while distancing his company from Claire's activities demonstrated recognition that the situation had become a serious threat requiring damage control rather than simple dismissal. However, his defensive positioning came too late to prevent significant reputational damage among the assembled observers, many of whom possessed sufficient technical knowledge to understand the implications of the evidence being presented. 2. Diligence would have revealed that Claire's credentials never included authorization for access to TechFlow's development systems, I replied, producing additional documentation that detailed her specific theft activities and unauthorized system modifications. These forensic reports show exactly what information was stolen, when it was copied, and how it was transmitted to external recipients including Meridian Analytics personnel. The forensic evidence was devastating in its specificity, providing technical details that would enable any competent investigator to verify the theft and trace the stolen information to its current location within Meridian Analytics systems. The documentation included metadata analysis, network traffic records, and encryption signatures that created an unbreakable chain of evidence connecting Claire's theft activities to her new employer's supposed innovations. Jennifer Walsh had been quietly documenting the entire confrontation, her journalist instincts recognizing a significant story with implications extending far beyond the immediate participants. The presence of venture capital investors, technology executives, and industry analysts ensured that news of the intellectual property theft would reach relevant professional networks quickly and comprehensively. This is obviously a complex situation that will require careful investigation and legal review, she interjected diplomatically, seeking to establish an official framework for the dramatic allegations being presented. Would either party be willing to provide additional comment or documentation for a comprehensive news report on these intellectual property disputes? Her offer to provide media coverage added another dimension to the evening's confrontation, creating potential for broader public exposure that could influence the ultimate resolution of the dispute. The prospect of detailed news coverage would inevitably pressure all parties to substantiate their claims with verifiable evidence while subjecting their actions to public scrutiny and professional judgment. Claire's final attempt to salvage her reputation involved desperate denial coupled with emotional appeals designed to generate sympathy from observers who might view her as a victim of professional jealousy rather than perpetrator of systematic fraud. Her strategy demonstrated fundamental misunderstanding of both the evidence against her and the professional sophistication of the audience she was attempting to manipulate. "I've never stolen anything from anyone," she declared with apparent sincerity, her voice carrying emotional conviction that might have been persuasive without the overwhelming documentary evidence contradicting her claims. "Everything I've accomplished has been through hard work, innovative thinking, and legitimate professional development. These accusations are nothing more than an attempt to undermine my success because my sister can't accept that I've achieved recognition for my own contributions." The emotional manipulation was transparent to anyone familiar with the technical evidence, but her performance did generate some sympathy among guests who lacked sufficient background to evaluate the competing claims independently. However, the specific nature of the security documentation and forensic analysis made her denials increasingly difficult to sustain as observers began asking detailed questions about the technical allegations. Marcus Webb recognized that continued association with Claire had become a liability that threatened his company's reputation and financial viability regardless of the ultimate legal resolution. His response demonstrated classic damage control strategy, seeking to distance Meridian Analytics from potential scandal while preserving whatever salvageable elements might remain from their relationship. Given the serious nature of these allegations, Meridian Analytics will immediately conduct a comprehensive review of all intellectual property acquisitions and development activities, he announced formally. "We take intellectual property rights very seriously and will cooperate fully with any legitimate investigation while protecting our shareholders and employees from unsubstantiated claims." His statement represented acknowledgement that the scandal would require formal response while attempting to maintain corporate credibility through demonstrated commitment to ethical business practices. However, the damage to both his personal reputation and his company's competitive position was already substantial and would likely prove irreversible regardless of future legal developments. The confrontation had achieved its primary objectives of exposing Claire's theft, preventing Meridian Analytics from benefiting from stolen technology, and establishing public awareness of the intellectual property dispute among relevant industry observers. The dramatic reversal of the evening's celebratory atmosphere into professional scandal provided satisfying justice while ensuring that future attempts to exploit TechFlow's innovations would face immediate recognition and resistance. As guests began departing with obvious discomfort at having witnessed such an explosive confrontation, I reflected on the successful execution of a strategic plan that had required months of careful preparation and significant personal courage to implement effectively. The evening's events would inevitably create lasting consequences for all participants, but the protection of TechFlow's intellectual property and competitive position had been secured through decisive action rather than passive acceptance of systematic theft. The transformation of Claire's celebration into her professional downfall represented poetic justice that satisfied both emotional and practical considerations while establishing clear precedent that intellectual property theft would face immediate and comprehensive exposure regardless of personal relationships or social considerations that might otherwise inhibit appropriate response to criminal behavior. Standing in the Harbor Club's elegant reception area as the last guests departed in uncomfortable silence, I understood that the evening had marked not merely the end of Claire's deception but the beginning of a new phase in my professional and personal development that would be defined by demonstrated willingness to defend principles and achievements against any threat, regardless of its source or the personal cost of resistance. The aftermath of the Harbor Club confrontation unfolded with swift and decisive consequences that exceeded even my most optimistic projections. Within 48 hours of the dramatic exposure, Meridian Analytics found itself embroiled in a public relations nightmare that threatened the very foundation of their business model. Jennifer Walsh's comprehensive article in Seattle Business Journal had been picked up by national technology publications, creating a cascade of negative coverage that reached venture capital firms, potential clients, and competitors throughout the industry. The article's headline, "Seattle Startup Built on Stolen Algorithms, Sisters' Betrayal Exposes Corporate Espionage Ring," generated immediate attention from both legal authorities and business ethics organizations. The detailed documentation I had provided, combined with witness statements from the party attendees, created an irrefutable narrative of systematic intellectual property theft that no amount of corporate damage control could effectively counter. Marcus Webb's attempts to distance Meridian Analytics from the scandal proved futile as forensic investigators discovered that the stolen algorithms formed the core of their entire product development strategy. The venture capital investors who had attended Claire's party immediately initiated emergency reviews of their investment portfolios, with several firms demanding complete audits of all intellectual property claims before providing additional funding. The financial pressure created by this sudden scrutiny forced Meridian Analytics into a defensive position that consumed resources and management attention while competitors gained significant market advantages. Patricia Voss, our corporate attorney, had been coordinating with federal investigators who specialized in technology crimes and corporate espionage cases. The evidence we had compiled met the threshold requirements for criminal prosecution under both the Economic Espionage Act and the Computer Fraud and Abuse Act, with potential penalties including substantial fines and prison sentences for those convicted of participating in the conspiracy. "The strength of your documentation has created an unusually clear-cut case for the prosecutors," Patricia explained during our strategy meeting the following Monday morning. "Most intellectual property theft cases involve complex technical arguments about similarity versus copying, but your security logs and forensic evidence eliminate any reasonable doubt about intentional misappropriation. The federal prosecutors are very interested in pursuing this as a deterrent case that sends a strong message to the technology sector." The criminal investigation expanded rapidly as federal agents discovered that the conspiracy extended beyond simple theft of TechFlow's algorithms to include a broader network of corporate espionage activities targeting multiple Seattle-area technology companies. Claire's cooperation with the investigation, motivated by desperation to minimize her own legal exposure, revealed systematic intelligence gathering operations that had been coordinated through encrypted communication networks and offshore financial accounts. These revelations transformed what had initially appeared to be an isolated incident into evidence of organized criminal activity with connections to foreign entities seeking to acquire American technology innovations through industrial espionage. The scope of the investigation grew to include cybersecurity experts, international trade specialists, and counterintelligence professionals who recognized the national security implications of the technology transfer networks that had been uncovered. Claire's professional destruction was swift and comprehensive, extending far beyond her immediate termination from Meridian Analytics to include permanent damage to her reputation within the technology sector. Industry professionals who had attended the Harbor Club party shared their experiences through professional networks, creating a detailed record of her attempted deception that would prevent future employment opportunities with any reputable organization. The combination of criminal charges, civil litigation, and professional ostracism effectively ended her career in technology marketing and analytics. The psychological impact of her exposure appeared to overwhelm Claire's ability to process the magnitude of her situation rationally. According to our mother, who maintained limited contact despite her obvious disappointment and embarrassment, Claire had initially attempted to blame me for orchestrating her downfall through jealousy and professional competition. This delusional Perspective gradually gave way to recognition that her own choices had created the circumstances leading to her destruction, though she continued to minimize the ethical and legal significance of her actions. She keeps saying that everyone steals ideas in the technology business and that you're only upset because she was better at it than you expected, our mother reported during one of our difficult conversations about the family implications of the scandal. I've tried to explain that what she did was fundamentally different from normal competitive intelligence, but she seems unable or unwilling to understand the distinction between legitimate business practices and criminal behavior. The family dynamics created by Claire's betrayal required careful navigation as I worked to maintain relationships with relatives who struggled to understand the technical and legal complexities of the situation. Some family members initially viewed my public confrontation as unnecessarily harsh punishment for what they perceived as normal workplace competition, while others recognized the severity of Claire's crimes and supported my decision to pursue criminal prosecution rather than accepting private settlement offers. Instead, I was providing intelligence that she used to plan and execute her theft. These conversations helped establish new boundaries around information sharing and family involvement in professional activities, creating protocols that would prevent similar exploitation in the future while maintaining appropriate family relationships. The educational process was necessary for everyone involved to understand how personal trust could be weaponized by individuals willing to violate ethical and legal standards for personal advancement. The professional recognition that followed. TechFlow's handling of the intellectual property theft included several industry awards and speaking opportunities that established me as a thought leader in both technical innovation and business ethics. The combination of technical expertise and demonstrated integrity created a unique professional profile that attracted attention from academic institutions, government agencies, and international organizations addressing technology security issues. These opportunities led to consulting relationships with law enforcement agencies developing expertise in technology crimes, academic collaboration studying corporate espionage methodologies, and advisory positions with industry organizations, creating best practices for intellectual property protection. The diversification of my professional activities beyond TechFlow's core business provided additional sources of satisfaction and achievement while contributing to broader societal efforts to address technology security challenges. 2 years after the Harbor Club confrontation, I received an unexpected communication from Claire through our family's attorney, requesting permission to include me in her rehabilitation and restitution planning process. The federal prison system's white-collar crime programs included components designed to help offenders understand the full impact of their actions on victims while developing realistic plans for making amends and preventing future criminal behavior. The request created complex emotional responses that required careful consideration of both personal healing needs and practical concerns about manipulation or continued exploitation. After extensive discussion with my own attorney and therapist, I agreed to participate in a structured communication process that would allow Claire to express genuine remorse while providing me with an opportunity to articulate the full scope of harm her actions had caused. The written communication that resulted from this process contained the first genuine acknowledgement of responsibility and expression of remorse that Claire had offered since her initial arrest and prosecution. While the letter could not undo the damage she had caused or restore the trust she had violated, it provided evidence that her incarceration had generated some level of personal growth and understanding of the consequences her choices had created. For others, I understand now that what I did wasn't just stealing computer code or business information, she wrote in carefully considered language that reflected extensive therapeutic work and legal guidance. I stole years of your life, your creative energy, your trust in family relationships, and your sense of security in your own professional achievements. The money and career advancement I gained through theft came directly at the expense of everything you had worked to build through legitimate effort and innovation. The acknowledgement represented progress toward genuine accountability, though it remained insufficient to repair the fundamental damage to our relationship or eliminate the ongoing consequences of her criminal choices. The communication did provide some measure of closure that enabled me to process residual anger and disappointment while focusing on continued professional and personal growth rather than remaining psychologically trapped by the betrayal. 3 years after the initial confrontation, TechFlow had evolved into one of Seattle's most respected technology companies, with a national reputation for innovation, ethics, and security expertise that attracted top talent and premium clients from across multiple industries. The company's success provided vindication for the principles that had guided my response to Claire's theft while demonstrating that ethical business practices could generate sustainable competitive advantages. The transformation from victim of corporate espionage to industry leader in security innovation represented a form of justice that exceeded simple punishment of those responsible for the original crimes. By converting adversity into opportunity and maintaining ethical standards throughout the crisis, TechFlow had achieved outcomes that pure legal remedies could never have provided while contributing to broader improvements in technology sector. Security practices. Standing in TechFlow's expanded headquarters overlooking Elliott Bay, watching the sunset paint the Olympic Mountains in brilliant shades of gold and crimson, I reflected on the unexpected journey that had begun with the discovery of unauthorized access to our development servers and culminated in the dramatic confrontation at Claire's promotion party. The transformation of personal betrayal into professional triumph had required courage, preparation, and unwavering commitment to ethical principles, but the results had exceeded my most optimistic projections for both personal satisfaction and business success. The evening at Harbor Club where my sister's celebration became her downfall remained a defining moment that established the foundation for everything that followed. By choosing strategic confrontation over passive acceptance, by preparing comprehensively rather than reacting emotionally, and by maintaining ethical standards despite personal cost, I had not only protected TechFlow's interests but also contributed to broader justice that extended far beyond the immediate participants. The scandal had exposed systematic criminal activity that threatened multiple companies and national security interests, leading to enhanced security practices throughout the technology sector and more effective law enforcement responses to corporate espionage. The personal cost of family relationship damage was significant and permanent, but the broader benefits justified the difficult choices that had been necessary to achieve appropriate accountability and deterrent effects. As Seattle's skyline glittered in the gathering darkness, I understood that the true measure of the Harbor Club confrontation was not the dramatic reversal of that specific evening but the sustained commitment to excellence and integrity that had emerged from navigating such a profound challenge to everything I had worked to achieve. The experience had tested and strengthened both personal resilience and professional capabilities in ways that would serve as permanent assets regardless of whatever future challenges might emerge. The sister who had attempted to steal my achievements had inadvertently provided the catalyst for greater success than I might have achieved without the necessity of defending my principles against systematic betrayal. In trying to diminish my accomplishments, she had forced me to develop capabilities and confidence that enabled achievements far beyond anything I had previously considered possible. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. These conversations forced me to articulate not only the specific harms caused by Claire's theft but also the broader principles at stake when family loyalty conflicts with ethical obligations and legal requirements. The educational process was emotionally exhausting but ultimately necessary to establish boundaries that would prevent future manipulation or guilt-based pressure to compromise my professional interests for family harmony. The resolution of the criminal case proceeded more quickly than typical white-collar prosecutions due to the overwhelming evidence and Claire's eventual decision to plead guilty in exchange for a reduced sentence. Her cooperation with the broader investigation into international technology theft networks provided valuable intelligence about criminal methodologies and organizational structures, leading to additional arrests and the disruption of several ongoing espionage operations. The federal sentencing guidelines recommended substantial prison time based on the financial value of the stolen intellectual property and the sophisticated nature of the criminal enterprise. However, Claire's cooperation with authorities and apparent lack of direct foreign connections resulted in a sentence of 3 years in federal prison followed by 2 years of supervised probation. The financial restitution requirements included complete disgorgement of all payments received from Meridian Analytics plus additional penalties that would effectively bankrupt her personal assets. Marcus Webb faced more severe consequences due to his leadership role in the conspiracy and his apparent knowledge of the stolen technology's origins. Federal investigators discovered communications suggesting that he had specifically targeted me for recruitment attempts as part of a broader strategy to acquire TechFlow's proprietary algorithms through both legitimate and illegitimate means. When direct recruitment failed, he had apparently collaborated with Claire to achieve the same objectives through systematic theft and corporate espionage. The evidence of Marcus's direct involvement in planning and executing the theft eliminated any possibility of claiming ignorance about the criminal nature of his company's competitive advantages. His sentencing reflected the aggravating factors of leadership responsibility and international coordination, resulting in a 7-year federal prison term plus substantial financial penalties that forced complete liquidation of his business interests and personal assets. Meridian Analytics collapsed within 6 months of the scandal's public exposure, unable to survive the combination of criminal investigation, civil litigation, investor flight, and client defection that followed the revelation of their fraudulent foundation. The venture capital firms that had invested in the company pursued legal action against Marcus Webb and other executives, seeking recovery of their investments through personal liability claims based on fraudulent misrepresentation and securities violations. The broader impact on Seattle's technology sector created increased awareness of intellectual property security issues and corporate espionage threats that had previously received insufficient attention from both companies and law enforcement agencies. Industry organizations implemented enhanced screening procedures for new employees and contractors, while cybersecurity firms experienced increased demand for comprehensive monitoring systems that could detect and document unauthorized access attempts. TechFlow benefited significantly from the positive publicity generated by our proactive response to intellectual property theft and our cooperation with law enforcement agencies investigating technology crimes. The dramatic nature of the confrontation at the Harbor Club, combined with the comprehensive evidence we had compiled, established our company as a model for how organizations should respond to corporate espionage and industrial theft. The enhanced reputation led to substantial increases in both client acquisition and employee recruitment as organizations sought to work with companies that demonstrated strong ethical standards and effective security practices. Our revenue grew by over 200% in the 18 months following the scandal, driven primarily by new clients who valued our proven commitment to protecting proprietary information and maintaining competitive integrity. The recognition also attracted attention from government agencies and defense contractors who required technology partners with demonstrated expertise in counterintelligence and information security. These relationships opened entirely new market segments that had been previously inaccessible to companies of our size and specialization, creating long-term growth opportunities that more than compensated for the temporary disruption caused by the criminal investigation and legal proceedings. David and I used the increased resources and market recognition to expand TechFlow's research and development capabilities, hiring additional data scientists and machine learning specialists who could accelerate our innovation timeline while maintaining the security protocols that had enabled detection of Claire's theft. The expansion allowed us to pursue more ambitious projects with greater potential impact on the predictive analytics industry. One of our most successful innovations emerged directly from the security monitoring systems I had developed to track Claire's unauthorized access activities. The techniques we had created for detecting and documenting intellectual property theft proved valuable for other organizations facing similar threats, leading to the development of a comprehensive security platform that became a significant revenue source independent of our original marketing analytics business. This evolution from victim of corporate espionage to provider of anti-espionage solutions represented an unexpected transformation that demonstrated how adversity could generate innovation when approached with strategic thinking rather than purely defensive reactions. The technical expertise we had developed through necessity became a competitive advantage that distinguished TechFlow from larger competitors who lacked our specialized experience with sophisticated security threats. The personal growth that resulted from navigating this complex crisis proved equally valuable, teaching me capabilities and confidence that extended far beyond the immediate business context. The experience of confronting systematic betrayal by a family member while maintaining professional effectiveness and ethical standards provided a foundation for leadership that served me well as TechFlow continued expanding into new markets and technology sectors. The relationship dynamics within my family gradually stabilized around a new equilibrium that acknowledged the permanent changes created by Claire's criminal behavior and its consequences. While complete reconciliation remained impossible due to the severity of her betrayal and its ongoing legal ramifications, we developed a framework for limited interaction that respected both the harm she had caused and her status as a family member serving appropriate consequences for her actions. Our mother required considerable time to process the magnitude of what had occurred and her own unwitting role in enabling Claire's access to my professional network and inside information about TechFlow's operations. The guilt she experienced about introducing Claire to industry contacts and sharing family pride in my technical achievements created additional emotional complexity that required patient discussion and reassurance over an extended period. I keep thinking about all the times I bragged about your innovations to Claire, giving her detailed information about your projects and clients, she reflected during one of our conversations about family responsibility and criminal enabling. I thought I was being a proud mother sharing one daughter's achievements with another daughter who would celebrate those successes.